Welcome to our conversation. I think this is probably the fourth one that we've done. When we started this program, I guess you'd call it, it was after the death of George Floyd. Our members, we knew we wanted to do something, and we just, this sort of evolved from we wanted to do maybe a virtual vigil to doing something more of more substance. So this is what we did. And I'm thrilled. It's grown quite a bit. And happy you all came. And I'm thrilled to have Boaz and McKenna here tonight. I want to thank Felicia Hobson, Freeholder Director Felicia Hobson, for joining us. Thank you. I don't see, I have some of my members here, Sharon and Dorothy and Sarah Holly, Vice President Sarah Holly, Joanne Weiner, Harriet Cohen. Thrilled to have everyone here. So when I met Boaz, he had just planned an amazing event in Munford Lakes. I was really impressed with everything that he did, not just the march, but he gave us, next steps to take. He gave us phone numbers. He gave us legislation that he wanted to see advance and told us what to do. And I just found it really impressive. I'm glad he's here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for him. And we also have McKenna Samson, and she helped plan the March in Mount Laurel, which was really amazing as well. We had some amazing speakers. Felicia Hobson spoke, and it was planned soup to nuts. It was really great. So with that, I think we'll get started. Boaz.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nancy. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak to everyone. Yeah, so my name's Boaz. I started a month or two ago organizing marches in South Jersey. And yeah, I love being part of this movement. A little more about me and just how I got here, and what really made me who I am is my experience growing up in the town of Medford. So I think that's a good place to start. I was adopted into Medford about the age of 4. Coming from a pretty large family, I have 7 sisters, and I only live with 3 others, but we keep in touch. And being the only boy, I definitely had to learn how to stake my claim and speak well and make sure I was heard, for sure. So that definitely, created the person I am today. More specifically though, my time in Medford was definitely full of a lot of privileges. Medford is largely a white suburb. And being adopted into this area meant that I had access to a lot of the great things that a lot of wealthier communities have, typically white communities have. And I definitely acknowledge that privilege, and that definitely makes me always keep that in the back of my head, actually in the front of my mind when I'm marching. A lot of things that people experience in a lot of different areas, I have the privilege of not experiencing. There's definitely a bubble in the area I'm from, and growing up with that definitely created some challenges for me. The first time I recognized that I was different from everyone was in elementary school. Just with conversations, very benign conversations with my friends. One person said that I look like chocolate, and they like that, and a lot of great, beautiful conversations I remember when I was little. The first time that I stopped feeling like a cute, harmless kid was when I was first going into middle school. I like to ride my bike around and go fishing, and as I was waiting at a cross stop to go across and go to a nearby stream or creek next to my house, a police officer drove by, and I smiled and waved, and Usually, we're in a small town and people will typically stop for other people on the crosswalk. But this police officer, really stared me down. It was kind of glaring at me, uh, and drove right past real slowly. And although I can't know what he was thinking, if you're a black person and you've ever gotten the stare or the glare that makes me feel unwelcome, you know what I'm talking about. Um, that was really the first time I felt a little less than welcome in my community. Um, a little bit later, first time I figured out what the N-word was in middle school as well. Uh, it was a very interesting experience. I was very ignorant to what racism was, and that other people saw me as, a different person than themselves. And it was definitely something I had to grasp with. Come high school, I was a pretty outspoken student. In the classroom, I loved to argue. Uh, I definitely can thank my family for molding that characteristic in me. Arguing is a pretty big thing in our family. Um, constructively or not, we love to argue. And being good at that definitely helped me in high school. Uh, I went to Shawnee in Medford, and just for a little bit of background, some of the conversations that were had um, by me in the classroom were against me versus my teachers, me versus classmates, and a lot of time I was the only black person in the room. I remember specifically in history class, there was a conversation started by a classmate comparing the Black Panthers to the KKK. Had I not been really into history, I probably wouldn't have spoken out against that. But the worst part about it was that the teacher propped up this conversation and not only allowed it, but perpetuated it, and asked the classroom about something they didn't quite understand. And just conversations like that definitely put me in a tough spot. It was a lot. Being outspoken black person definitely had me alienated. I cannot say I wasn't very socially awkward in high school. And I very much kept to myself. One of the really good things that I got to appreciate, further down the line was that the people I was making friends with. I played soccer and I played a lot of sports, and I loved them. A lot of my teammates, like any kids this age, had some ignorance, racial ignorance. And in order to become be a human being living through my high school years, I had to make friends. And some of my friends were, well, a little more than problematic. Conversations about saying the N-word, not saying it, reminding these guys that that's not funny. Things that made me feel uncomfortable that they thought was, a joke or a laughing matter. That was very common. But in the process, I learned patience. I learned that where ignorance comes from is not necessarily malicious. A lot of times it just comes from not knowing and inexperience. Being one of the few black people in the area and in high school, a lot of my white peers did not have the sort of experience being around black people. And so things that you might understand as proper etiquette, like not saying the N-word and not making jokes and not referring to Black people as monkeys or this or that. Not openly, supporting racist people and arguing that racism doesn't exist in America. Those were not boundaries that anyone saw. And being exposed to that definitely molded me to be a person who speaks out and speaks up. But it also molded me to be someone who is patient and is understanding that where there is ignorance, there is a lack of knowledge. And although it's really tough, it's someone's responsibility to help that person understand where they are wrong. And that's really what I like to think that I worked on and what I became and what I understood as I grew up. What really got me energized for this movement, of course, was the George Floyd video. But more specifically, it was how my friends reacted to it. There's some things that I think we can all agree we expect from our close friends. One is empathy. Another is, a shoulder to cry on, someone to understand things with, someone to talk things over with, and someone to love. My closest friend, unfortunately, was very conservative, came from a very conservative family. And the day of George Floyd's death, we were hanging out, and the first time that this has ever happened with my close friend, he tried to argue with me about saying the N-word. Needless to say, that was definitely not a good time for him to try bringing that up. And it was, in his point of view, it was something to laugh about, but in my point of view, it was everything that is wrong with America. It was almost poetry that the same day that this man had a knee in his neck was the same day that who I thought was my close friend just completely did not understand. I tried to speak with him about it, and unfortunately, all I got was the typical sort of ignorance and same sort of, all lives matter, or, this or that, same sort of very conservative leaning answers. And so I got really angry with him, and that definitely energized me to come out and speak my mind. I started demonstrating by myself on Route 70 in Medford. That was my start. Made some signs at work, and I got out there and I started hailing cars. Throwing my fist up, trying to get beeps from everyone. And it was a really beautiful practice because driving past at 50 miles an hour, these cars couldn't say all lives matter, but they could honk. So mostly what I was getting was positive feedback from honking. But something really great happened. The first march in Medford took place, and I went to it. And it was a very eye-opening experience. And when I saw these young students, younger than me, who organized it, I said, I can do this. I want to do this. And I spoke to the chief of police in Medford. He actually let me know that there was another organizer who was looking to do a march in Medford, John Walls, and that specifically he was looking for me. So I got in touch with this organizer, John, and we have been organizing together ever since. So the things that I am working on right now include the Imani Kildea case in North Jersey. And this is aside from organizing marches. I'm looking to contact New Jersey leadership, so Cory Booker's office, the AG's office, um, Andy Kim's office, Troy Singleton. Um, I am looking to get this case moved up to the state level. There are notable conflicts of interest within this county regarding Amani Kodea, who, if you don't know, and this is a little graphic, he was found hanging from a tree. That same week, 7 other Black men were found hanging across the country, and a few days later, a video came out of a Black man who was in the process of being hung by a group of white people in Virginia. So that is one of the things I'm working on right now, and unfortunately, it's tough. I'm young, I'm 21, I'm relatively new to this political landscape, and what I usually get and what I have been getting is cold shoulders, to say the least. It is go through the process. It is very much, you need to fill this out and wait a few weeks before we consider this or that. It is, did you go online? Did you fill this out before you considered trying to speak with this representative? And it can be a little disheartening, but if Amani, who was an Army reservist, Black man, adopted into a white town, a lot of things that I see in him, I see in me. If there's anything that he deserves, it's proper resources into his investigation. Another thing I'm working on is the Justice and Policing Act of 2020. That's really what I think made me stand out as an organizer. Was I made packets for legislation and calling legislators in support of the bill. The bill is really all about police accountability, and although it's not everything, it doesn't have everything. It doesn't have everything we need. It is bare bones. It has a lot of what we need. So I definitely am keeping up with that piece of legislation. I'm also looking to speak with representatives, with Andy Kim and Senator Cory Booker, and Troy Singleton regarding what I can do more in order to support this bill and help it getting passed, as well as if it doesn't pass, how I can hold, legislators accountable for introducing a new bill and not letting this go, not letting this get swept under the rug. One of my biggest fears is that this is going to turn into a 6-month thing, and then I already feel like the media is sort of forgetting it. The conversation is about fascism in Portland, which is a huge problem, but it's become a lot less of Black people being heard and the way Black people are being affected across America. So I'm going to continue going strong, and I hope to get in contact with these legislators. I'm a pretty patient person, and I may be planning potentially a march around some offices in New Jersey, some of New Jersey leadership, to get their attention. But I hope to get in contact with them and speak with these legislators, just so I can, speak with them on these issues and figure out where they stand and how they can help our community. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing, but I'd like to pass this back to Nancy, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Boaz. You're an impressive young man. I have no doubt that you're going to be just fine moving forward. I think you're going to make your mark on this world, and we're thrilled to be part of that, and we support you. So whatever you want to do. So our next speaker is McKenna. For everyone just joining us, McKenna is an amazing young lady. She's president of the NAACP at TCNJ. She's a volunteer. She can tell you about her volunteerism, and she helped plan the George Floyd march in Mount Laurel, which was really impressive. I participated in that one as well. So McKenna, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me to speak. This is such a great and great opportunity. So I just want to say thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. So a little bit about me. I'll introduce myself. My name is McKenna Samson. I'm a rising senior at the College of New Jersey in Ewing. I graduated from Lenape High School back in 2017. So me and Boaz are from the same district. At the things that I do at TCJ currently, I am a member of the Bonner Community Scholars Program. I've been a part of that since my freshman year, and I volunteer at the Trinity Soup Kitchen. That's kind of on pause right now because of the pandemic, but I have been volunteering there since August of 2017. It's like my pride and joy, and I love working there. Shout out to the Bonners that are on the call. I'm also the president of the NAACP branch for the College of New Jersey. So we're really working on just growing our branch membership and voter education. That's something that we're really focusing on, especially with this upcoming election. But to kind of, I guess, tie things back to who I am as a person and my activism and my history with activism, kind of to introduce like my family. So my grandparents are actually on this call, and they are originally from Jackson, Mississippi. And growing up, they told me a lot of stories about their own activism because they were college students during the 60s, during the height of segregation. And being from Mississippi, a lot of what they were doing was to improve and integrate their community. So they integrated churches. And when I was growing up hearing this kind of stuff, I was in like middle school. I really admired the work that they were doing, and I wanted to be able to kind of do that for myself. It wasn't really until 2012 when Trayvon Martin was killed, because I would say growing up in Mount Laurel, we were definitely very sheltered. Myself and my peers, we were definitely very sheltered from some of the other dangers, some of the racism. I would definitely say some of it was stuff that we would experience every day, but we didn't necessarily know because it was so covert. And I'll talk about microaggressions a little bit later and how that really affected my upbringing. That's something that I definitely didn't really see in my community until about 2012 when Trayvon Martin was killed. And it kind of became very evident that a boy who was a little bit older than I was shot and killed in his own neighborhood. And that it could happen to myself, it could happen to my cousins, it could happen to my brother, it could happen to my own father, my family. And so I became heavily invested with Black Lives Matter. I want to say going back to like middle school. And it was kind of more of a taboo thing at the time because when Trayvon Martin was killed, when Mike Brown was killed, I think the media really focused on people's reactions. They really focused on angry Black people and not necessarily why people were out there doing what they were doing. Colin Kaepernick, he was taking a knee and he was more so demonized for disrespecting the flag and disrespecting the troops. And when that kind of stuff was going on, I was probably a sophomore in high school. And I just remember it being so polarized. I want to say that we have one of the most diverse schools in our school district. So there is kind of a higher population of Black students, Black and brown students at my high school than there were in other schools in our district. But that didn't really stop some of the ignorant students from voicing their opinions. So at the same time, while I'm getting more invested with feminism, intersectional feminism, Black Lives Matter, the boys in my classes were kind of making it a joke, teasing me for being so outspoken. Like Boaz said, I would get into arguments with people in my classes as well. I remember we had a discussion in one of my classes, and it was about Michael Brown. And a boy in my class had quite literally said that he believed the cop and that Mike Brown had been a danger and he deserved to die. And that was something that really, I remember being very upset about it. I remember our teacher telling us we weren't allowed to talk about it outside of the classroom because it was an insulated discussion, but that didn't mean that it didn't hurt any less, especially as being one of the only Black kids in that English class at the time. I think there were 2 other kids in the class and the 3 of us were just kind of very uncomfortable. So going forward, after I graduated high school, I just remember being more invested in doing more community service. That's something that I was always involved in high school. I was in National Honor Society, Community Service Club. I was just really involved in that. And going into college, the community that I was serving in Trenton was predominantly Black and brown. So I'm seeing people that look like me that I'm serving, but I also understand what they're going through. I understood the struggles that they were going through where some of my white peers didn't necessarily understand. And it was kind of difficult to kind of vocalize that and kind of take a step back when I was in high school. When I did vocalize, my opinions or I remember, I mean, I have natural hair, as you can probably see. I would get picked on for my hair, for wearing it in a puff like this. People would touch it, ask me if it was real. If I told them that I didn't want to be touched, it was, oh, you're an angry Black woman. Like, McKenna, you're overreacting. And this is coming from white students and other students of color. So it was extremely like tiring. So to go into the College of New Jersey, which was another predominantly white institution, it was just kind of like, I'm fighting the same battles once again. Now, it was kind of, I don't want to say a lull, but I was more so able to focus on my community service work until racism kind of popped back up again on my campus. And this was during my sophomore year, fall semester. That was kind of like a turbulent semester personally, but for the general public, we had our very, I don't want to say first, but we had a very big racial incident in which there were about 3 or 4 boys that were walking behind the freshman dorms. And underneath the dorms, we have like a food court where people usually go to socialize, get food late at night. And some male students, some white male freshmen, decided to yell out of their window some racial slurs, hard R, N-word, calling them other, derogative names that I'm not going to repeat. But that was something that really kind of opened a lot of our eyes. A lot of the people in my grade and the grade above me were especially like shaken by the incident. And I personally was friends with all of the boys that were called those words. So it was especially personal for me. So this then introduced me to my first experiences with community organizing. So I was working with students from different socioeconomic backgrounds and experiences. For me, growing up in Mount Laurel, which is a very predominantly white, upper middle class community, I had never really had any run-ins with the police that would make me, arguably afraid of them, other than what I was seeing on the television. But there were students that I was working with, that I was organizing with, that had really negative interactions with the police. And they were like, we don't want to deal with campus police at all. We're not going to talk to campus police. I know you think that's the route that we should take as an organizing group, but I'm telling you personally, I don't feel comfortable doing so. So that was something that kind of opened my eyes again for another first time. There were Black students who looked like me, but shared different experiences than myself. And that was something that I had to really take into account as an organizer. So, we kind of delegated different roles. So, McKenna, you would do this, we have Marcus doing that. And it was us coming together and really working, and I guess kind of uplifting each other, where there were things, if they say I didn't have experience in doing certain things, someone else would show me how to do that. So we ended up speaking with the Board of Trustees to kind of present a list of demands and things that we wanted to see change. And I'm going to be very honest with you, we did not see those changes until about this year. And that included implementing a policy in our student conduct laws that would specifically outline and I guess give us kind of like a standard as to what would happen if you do commit any kind of discriminatory hate crime on our campus, whether it be racial, if it's by gender, or if it's by like sexual orientation. We really wanted there to be some sort of outline, because it was very, very clear that there were Black and brown students, and within that population, kids that were of the LGBTQIA community that were being singled out and harassed on our campus. And it was something that we really wanted to, bring the Board of Trustees attention to. So since then, as I'm now a rising senior, I have worked closely with my school's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to collaborate on an Inclusive Excellence Manifesto. And within this manifesto, I directly am quoting our new Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, James Felton. He said that this manifesto is a list of bold and courageous recommendations for the college to help dismantle systemic racism. So this is exactly what we were trying to do 2 years ago when those initial hate crimes were happening on our campus. And to be very honest with you, we have had more incidents like that happen on our campus, but it's just kind of like at this point, since we've all been home because of the pandemic, we've really had a microscope on everything that's been happening in America between George Floyd's death, Breonna Taylor, that's another name that we have really, really been talking about that I think is kind of disappearing at this point, but we really do need to continue highlighting, because I feel like Black women are especially left out of a lot of these spaces, a lot of these conversations, and they're doing a lot of the work, but and suffering just as much as Black men are in these spaces. But those are definitely some names, among others, that we have been discussing that we really have been inspired by to really kind of focus on what we can do as a campus community to fix our own issues. So another large part that I would accredit to activism nowadays is social media. Currently, I am on a social media cleanse because I spent a good amount of my time from the time that I left campus back in March all the way till like early July on social media, specifically Twitter. And I've really found that I've been able to reach a lot of people that are my age, older people, younger people, to really bring attention to the issues. When George Floyd was, murdered, that's where I saw his video. I actually did not watch the video, but that's where we were getting all of our news. That's where we were seeing a lot of what was going on. We were seeing the protests. We were seeing the work that people were putting in all across the country. And it was almost like, well, I'm seeing people doing this in different cities, so how can I help myself and my own community? And with social media, like I said, Twitter is a huge platform. I had a tweet, I believe I had tweeted about some Black trans women and some Black cis het women that had been murdered. And I was saying that in the height of all of the celebrity drama, because I feel like we definitely idolize celebrities, we were losing focus at what was really mattering. And that was that people were dying, people were being killed, and nothing was being done about it. And that tweet did end up going viral, which I was not expecting, but it really helped me realize the power of social media. We ended up opening up a conversation between my peers, and this is what inspired us to organize for the June 7th Justice for George Floyd March. We opened a conversation, and it was I think it was about a group of like 30 or so Black alum from Lenape, and we were all sharing our experiences for like 2 or 3 days straight about our own experiences with racism, microaggressions. For some people, it was their teammates that were harassing them. For some of them, it was like slick comments that had been made by their friends. And some of it, for me, it was like, I'm in AP level and honors level classes, and students are forgetting that there are Black students in these spaces. And I am completely understanding and soaking in everything that they were saying, all the ignorant comments, some of the things that I was hearing. And it was like, even though we've been out of high school for 3 years, these are still things that we kind of have to address. It wasn't something that we could let brush under the rug. So that did end up, I don't want to say bringing up a lot of drama, but a lot of the people that had kind of been racist bullies back in high school were called out. And I'm going to be very honest with you, a lot of people were able to take accountability for their actions, and some people were like, I don't really care, it was in high school, leave it alone. And once we had done that, we were like, well, we have all of these eyes on our Twitter accounts, all of these people. We found that people were like literally watching our Twitter accounts to see what they were going to post next, what we were going to say next, who was going to get exposed. And we decided to use that exposure for good. So about, I believe it was like 3 other of my classmates, we were all in the same graduating class. We decided that we were going to organize a march for George Floyd. We were like, at this point, if we're seeing people that are donating to these bail funds, we're seeing people donating to GoFundMes for victims of police brutality, then we want to see them really, get out in the streets and walk the walk if they're talking the talk. So I ended up coordinating with Mount Laurel Police, and they were actually really, really excellent and very, very accommodating. So we developed a really safe march route. We discussed logistics, we discussed parking, all kinds of things that you don't really seem to really think about, but they really ensured that we had a safe march, and we had a very big turnout. I still don't know how many people were there, but the officer that I'd been coordinating with had told me, I believe that there were upwards of 1,000 people at the march. And there were people from other towns. I had people direct messaging me asking about parking. And it was an emotional day because a lot of us, I don't want to say weren't expecting that crowd, but we were very excited and happy to see that our peers, people that we might not have even gotten along with in high school, had come out to the march to support, to really show solidarity for the Black community, because at the end of the day, we're all human. And although the Black experience might not necessarily align with, your experience, it still matters. Black lives do matter. And it was, I still really do think about June 7th, and it really makes my heart so happy that so many people were able to come out. I do wish, like Boaz had done, I do wish that we had given people next steps. I think that's something that's very essential, especially with this upcoming election, that we can't just go out to marches and hold a sign and yell and chant and then just be done with it. I think that this is something that we have to commit to for a very, very long time if we want to see change. With that comes voting. So that kind of leads into the work that I'm doing for NAACP. Ever since last school year, we've been doing a lot of development and voter education for the upcoming 2020 presidential election. We really are supposed to be a nonpartisan party. A nonpartisan organization, but I feel like there's only one way to go at this point. And so we've really just been engaging the student body. We've held voter registration drives. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do them in person because we have a lot of limitations on our campus right now. A lot of limitations in general in the world because of COVID-19, but we are encouraging people to really educate themselves on what's going on. And if you really do feel so strongly about what you're seeing in the news or what you saw in the news earlier in the summer, to really get out there and vote, because your voice does matter. I've had a lot of peers tell me that they don't see the importance in voting. And I really do think that it's a civic responsibility to vote if we want to see change, because we could get another 4 years of Donald Trump. And if that's not what you want, then you have to make your voice heard. So now my next steps, like I said, a lot of NAACP voter education and membership. We're really trying to grow as a branch and really engage with our campus community. And again, it's going to be a bit of a challenge with the pandemic, but we're really trying to do that. Administrative change at TC&J. I think that our President Foster, she has really shown, I believe personally, that she has really shown that she is committed to changing what we see on our campus. A lot of students, since we've left, have expressed, being uncomfortable with the people that they go to school with. We've had an influx of Instagram accounts, and it's Black at TC&J, disabled at TC&J, Jewish at TC&J, women at TC&J, LGBTQ at TC&J. And it's really given students a platform to discuss their own experiences, things that we don't really get to talk about. And again, this plays into the power of social media and how important it is. We're giving people the platform that they never had before to talk about what they've been through. And again, if you want to see change, if you want to prevent more stories like that from coming out, then we really have to put pressure on administration, then outside of our campus, bubble, putting pressure on our legislators, putting pressure on our elected officials to really bring the change that we want to see. Again, with the pandemic, I'm really trying my best to just relax, and that kind of plays into my own break from social media, because I noticed that I was really hovering over my phone to see what was going to happen next. Obsessing over the media, obsessing over what's going on TV. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do as an organizer or as someone that's in a political place of power is to really just take care of yourself. And I think that's something that a lot of people kind of overlook, and we overwork ourselves, but you really do have to take care of yourself, because if you're burnt out, then how are you going to be able to engage the people around you? Or how are you going to definitely help the people that are organizing alongside you? You have to be able to take care of yourself to help others. And then I'm currently working with the Mount Laurel Democrats to organize with youth engagement, and that would be with college students, high school students, young adults, people that have recently graduated, and really just trying to get people engaged again with voting, just getting people more involved. A lot of my own peers, a lot of my friends, we had discussions after our march and how pleased we were. And I was like, you guys have to remember that we have to vote. We control who's on town council. We control who the mayor is. If you're not pleased with the things that you're seeing around town, or you're not pleased with the people that are elected to these offices, you have to really do your research and get yourself involved with that. So that's really a lot of what I've been doing. Again, I do credit social media for giving us the platform that we have, especially with everyone being stuck inside. It's really hard to engage with people and have these critical conversations that we need to be having, like this one right here. But with social media, with technology, and I do believe that is the future. With all of that, I think that we're going to really be able to make the steps that we have to make. And I guess the last thing I would just say is that Black Lives Matter, while it was, I don't want to say a trend, it was very controversial way back in 2012, 2016, when we were really seeing a lot of people being criticized publicly for standing up for it. I believe that now that mainstream media, mainstream big corporations are now co-opting the movement, I don't want it to be something that we just pick up and use for a couple of months and then drop off when it's convenient. Like, this is something that we have to be dedicated to literally for the rest of our lives. Black people are never really going to go away. So Black lives are always going to matter. So I really think the best way to be an ally, even if you aren't Black, is to really just show support to the Black community and to not let Black Lives Matter die out, because it's not just a trend. It is something that we're going to have to commit to for a very long time. If you look at the past movements that we've had, the civil rights movement, the bus boycott lasted well over a year. So we're like 3-4 months in with the Black Lives Matter movement, but we have to keep the ball rolling. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, McKenna. And I know you can count on my members, and I'm sure all of our friends and family, to continue to support this movement. I have to thank your families. You two are just amazing. And I hope that we can continue to work with both of you in the future. Before we start the official Q&A, I have a few questions that were provided to me that I'd like to start with, if you both want to unmute yourselves.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is sort of obvious, but it's an excellent question. Thank you, Sharon. Please tell us about a time that you were at an event. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. I'm not starting with that one. That's next. What can we do to support young activists? Ideally, specific actions that we can take now. Let's start with McKenna.
Sure. I really think what you can do to help young activists is to give us a voice. Sometimes I find that it's frustrating to enter spaces with older people, and only being 21 or being younger, even high school students. My brother's in high school. Sometimes I feel like people discredit what we're doing because we're so young and we don't necessarily have all of the experience or know everything. But I think to be able to sit back and to listen to young activists, to give them the space to kind of speak their mind, I think that's really encouraging. It's helpful.
Boaz?
Yeah, definitely. I also think that at least as an organizer, one of the things I really appreciate is when people help spread the message. People become active on social media, and they, spread the word that there's going to be a march, and they come to the march. But also the things that, as an organizer, I don't see that I know are really important, like continuing the conversation, educating yourself on these issues so that you can go to your peers and go to your neighbors, your coworkers, and speaking to them, asking them, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? And if it's anything other than Black Lives Matter, it's talking to them and letting them know why Black Lives Matter, why there's a movement, and why this issue needs to be addressed legislatively and socially. Definitely one of the most energizing things for me as an activist is knowing that people are with me, and that's not just showing it at a march or a rally. It's really going back to your place of comfort and making things a little uncomfortable, confronting people, family members, asking, what do you think about Black Lives Matter, and having that conversation. That's definitely what you can do for not only the movement, but for me.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Nance, this is Felicia. Can I jump in before I have to drop?
Sure.
I'm sorry, guys. I do have to drop, but I did
okay.
want to say to McKenna and Boaz, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. I am so impressed with you guys, and your passion for wanting to make a difference is so important to me. And I don't know if you heard or if this audience have heard, but through the Black Lives Matter movement and because of the death of George Floyd, I, as Freeholder Director, have decided to create a Minority and Equality Commission. And that was supported by my colleagues at our last meeting. And we meet again on August 12th. And I have to say, I would be honored if you two would join. I already have your names down. I did not officially call you and ask you, which you should still expect a phone call next week. But the task force is geared to everything that you're speaking about. It's geared to making sure that young people feel supported, but not just that, just so the Black Lives Matter movement will not settle down. We have got to make a difference. And as most of you all realize, Burlington County is a very white county, and we have real racists among us, and we have to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So it is my initiative, and I would be honored if you guys would consider serving. So I'll be reaching out to you guys next week. So I wanted to make that point. And the next point I wanted to talk about really quickly is, McKenna, you're 100% right when you talk about voting. Particularly in this environment, we have got more work to do than we did if we were in our normal space, because people don't know how to complete the ballots. Everybody ballots. I know the primary ballots, a lot of people got incorrect primary ballots stating that they were Republicans and they were really not Republicans. So, and yeah, we found out that that was a glitch from the state, so forth and so on. But the amount of work that we have to do now, and in the midst of COVID, right, and particularly expecting that the numbers will increase by the time we do get ready to vote, it's more important that we have the conversations and make sure everyone has that ballot and sends that ballot in. So voting is what's going to make a difference. And as I said at the march, this is really for your generation, McKenna and Boaz, right? Because I'm Generation X. So it's by the time you guys see the change that you expect to see, I'll be too old to speak to you about it. But while I'm here and while I'm in office, I want to do everything that I can to make sure that you feel supported. I don't want your voice to go unheard. And I don't want the struggles that we currently have to go unnoticed or unworked, because we have so much work to do that it's unbelievable that we still have to deal with young Black people being hung. To me, that I can't, because I don't want to get emotional, but it just speaks volumes to where we are in our society, and the leadership that we have in Washington, D.C. is doing us a complete disservice. Despite your political views, it's not even about Republican and Democrat anymore. This is just about being human. Mm-hmm. And they are doing us 100% disservice by not acting as if we are all human and deserve that same respect. So that said, I won't continue to preach on. I just wanted to share with you how impressed I am. Nancy, thank you for continuing to do these. These sessions are amazing, and I think they speak volumes. And I'll just leave you with what Pastor Corey left us with at the last conversation, when we were having a conversation about race. We have to remind white people that when they are talking to us, because they're so quick to say, we don't see color, we don't see color. Well, we want you to see our color. Mm-hmm. That is, therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem, because you don't recognize my differences, you don't respect my culture, you don't respect my norm. And therein lies the problem. And that's how we get to the places we are today. So we have to remind white people to please, yes, you should see my color, and let's move on from there. So I appreciate you giving me these few minutes. McKenna, Boaz, I appreciate you, and I'll be calling you both next week, okay?
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Felicia.
Thank you. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks, Nancy, for letting me interrupt. I appreciate it. All right, you guys take care.
So let's move on with the questions. Susan?
Thank you. First of all, two things. First, in responding to you, Boaz, we happen to have on the call today a staffer in Andy Kim's office.
Oh.
And Sharon Anderson, she's waving at you. And Sharon, could you put your contact information in the chat?
We can connect with Boaz after the meeting.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure she would facilitate that meeting. Now, separately, beyond that, one of the things I've observed, and I went to your Medford Lakes March, Boaz.
Oh, great.
And one of the things that I've observed in political activism is that, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement is certainly bringing in people who haven't been active before. There's an opportunity to sustain and broaden the involvement of those people, you know, you know, one of the things I've particularly observed is that people who are in those marches see the immediate connection with local. local policing, the issues in their immediate community, but they don't do the bridge that you have done, Boaz, to see it's legislative too.
Right.
And the justice in policing could have a more profound impact. Young people especially seem to understand president, if maybe they understand president, and understand local, and they're not getting that critical congressional piece and why it matters and what actually happens at that level and what you can do to influence at that level. Do you have any thoughts on how to bring those people along who've now entered through Black Lives Matter, to broaden their involvement, to keep them engaged and help expand their understanding of all the different ways they can now influence, the outcomes they want to see?
Yeah. So just to clarify, I am actually one of those people who have just gotten into this sort of field, similar to everyone else. If someone's just joining a march with me and are just starting to get into it, they're only a few months behind me, So I am still trying to figure it out. But to answer your question, the things that they can do is first let me know that they are really in this. If you are a young activist or just an activist and you are really getting into the political aspect of Black Lives Matter and and want to know like what sustainable changes you can help to make, letting me know that you are there and getting in contact with me. I'm gonna be honest, there are a lot of things that I'm trying to work on, and it can be a little it can be a lot sometimes. So I can think of 5 different contact sheets that I can make for 5 different issues right now that I think are super important. And trying to get people to understand the importance of contacting legislators and letting their voices be heard is really the angle I'm taking. That being said, there's probably some other different methods of getting people to understand how legislatively, how important legislation is in making the sustainable change. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm just gonna, yeah.
Are you collecting names of the people who come to your marches so that you can have ongoing kind of connection and dialogue with those people?
No, but I do let people know that they can, follow me on Facebook, which I know sounds very loose, but anyone who has seen me on Facebook knows that I will message you as you message me, and I love getting in conversations with people. I think potentially in the future, maybe I could give my contact information to people who seem like they really want to take that extra step. But again, it also comes down to this. Some people who go to the marches, it can be a one march thing, right? It can be I go to the march, this is important, great, thank you for the sheet, Black Lives Matter, I'm gonna call this, and that was a lot, I'm done. And honestly, I understand where people are coming from. It is a lot. So if people can differentiate and show that they aren't just going there just to go there, just for the trendiness of it, and are really trying to make sustainable change, that then allows me to work with them. It's hard. I have to work on one of the things I have to work on is delegating to people who have been coming to my marches and who have been helping me in organizing these. I need to start working on delegating some of these responsibilities and some of these and get some other fresh ideas from other people. I think all of those things would really, hopefully impact people enough to let them understand the importance of the legislative, the importance of legislation and making change and perpetuating this movement of Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
For myself, I lean a little bit more on the technical side. When I say technical, I mean like technology. So honestly, using social media to keep the issues in people's faces, because when it's in your face, it's hard to ignore. If you're opening your phone up, you're on Facebook, there's an article that I just shared, you can't ignore it. Same with Instagram, Twitter. If, you're continuing to keep it in people's faces. Is it annoying? Yes, but if you're really committed to the cause and you really want to see the change, it's not going to be as much of a nuisance to open it up or to sign a petition. Something that I found to be really, really helpful is for those that can't get out to marches for whatever reason, whether it be, again, COVID-19 or you're just unable to physically, signing petitions is something that really helps. Something else that I also really discovered since I've been in the House is being able to code to make pre-made emails. So in doing that, you can reach out to your legislators. If you click on a link, it's kind of difficult to explain, but there is a way to draft a full email. And in doing that, you can really directly contact your legislators, your congressmen, your administrators, whoever you want. And I find that to be really, really helpful, because you're kind of taking the hardest part, which is, writing the email, and you're just kind of removing the middleman. Now, like one-on-one, I think it's really implementing it in conversations. If you're just, hanging out with somebody, or if you're at dinner with your family, just bringing that into the conversation every once in a while. If you're out with friends, again, bringing that up in conversation. This is something that I'm not going to let go, because it's something that's important to me. So again, keeping it in people's faces, I think, really does help to make sure, to keep people committed to the cause. I definitely think that for sure.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you. Maria, did you want to ask a question? Maria?
Yes, please. Sorry. I was wondering, because I've been with Boaz for a few different protests, and I've tried to hold a few myself. The issue seems to be, people coming out, and it seems to be less and less every single time. So I was just wondering how you guys, one, stay positive, and how you guys are kind of outreaching to see who else we can get out there. If there's like any information or anything that you found that really helps get the word out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on that. I'm seeing less and less people come, and that is to be expected, unfortunately. Really, I come from a suburb. A lot of my peers that come to these marches are white people, which is great, because I like when people come with a side of empathy and understanding, that although they might not quite understand, they're willing to take that next step to understand and to march with us. That being said, though, when it hasn't affected you personally through your life, and it can be hard to stay with it. So one of the things that I guess I really like to see from people to keep the numbers up is sharing, and also trying to get people to come. Again, we're in a pandemic, so it's not easy getting large numbers. People don't always feel comfortable, and although New Jersey's doing relatively well, there's a lot of anxiety regarding this virus, and that also plays into the part of people not coming, and the numbers starting to die down. So my strategy is really just trying to get the message out to people. When I have a protest, I try to put in every single group message. I'm looking to the town I'm going to, and I'm looking into putting it into group messages there. Something that really helps is creating conflict online. If there's one thing people love on Facebook, it's getting in an argument.
Yeah.
I use that as a strategy.
I know, Boaz.
I use that as a strategy. Yep. John is my John and I play good cop, bad cop, so to speak.
I'm very familiar with John's tactics.
Yeah, where he will create conflict. He will say, let's say before ACO, he says, I know that there are members of hate groups there, white supremacy. ACO, what are you doing about these people in your town? And people get mad.
They freaked out.
Why are you saying this about ACO? I've been living here in my life. Do love Black Lives Matter. I also feel that, you're mischaracterizing. And, I kind of go in there and I'm like, hey, if you'd like to, it sounds like you're a little confused as to the message of our march. If you'd like to, speak with me directly, I'd love to clarify, the message of this movement. So definitely creating a stir is what gets it. There's a lot of things that people can be paying attention to. The what's going on in Portland, stimulus bill, and just so many other issues. And as an organizer, I'm battling for the attention. So one thing I need to remember, and that something that I do, is make sure I get the engagement through whatever means necessary without detracting from the overall message of Black Lives Matter.
For me, I'm going to be very honest. I was going out to the protests more in the beginning of the movement, so like end of May, beginning of June. Since then, I've really kind of backpedaled because of the pandemic. And again, at first I was like super excited to get out there, but it is a little bit concerning again with all of the health risks. So I think, one, don't stop the protests, because the people that are extremely committed to the cause are going to keep coming out because it matters to them. And the people that aren't able to are going to find other ways to show up. So that might be sharing your flyers to other groups that they are a part of, like, hey, I can't make it, but if you are able to, it's on this day at this time, definitely try and come out. I also think that changing up your approach in addition to having marches is also really helpful. So if you're circulating petitions for cases that you think should be reopened, or things that you just find to be, I guess, of importance to you within regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, I think that's something else that you could do. I think creating conversations online, conflict, I do agree, is also a really great way to engage people, because you have people's attention, their passion. And if you kind of call people out, you're directly targeting them, so then they can't really ignore it if they really don't want to. What else was I going to say? I really think that those are probably the best ways to go about it. But again, we do have really tricky times right now, and I do feel like a lot of people were kind of treating BLM as a trend, and that's why you're not really seeing as many people going out to the marches, on top of the fact that we have a pandemic. But I think if you're passionate about it, you're going to keep doing it. And even though you might not have the numbers that you want, you're still having people that are showing up for you. And I think that also is really important.
Okay, thank you guys so much for addressing my question. I mean, definitely the number is concerning to me, just because, I am from Echo. That's where I try to focus my protest at, just because it's my hometown. I feel like we really, really need a big change here. Boaz can tell you why I think that. But it seems to be a big focus, especially on that Waterford page, that they're noticing that our numbers are going down and makes them feel powerful. So I was just wondering if there was anything, I definitely like giving out the different information, circulating different information, kind of calling them out a little bit. I've tried to calm myself down in the past few weeks to not get too spicy online, but it gets hard. So I definitely think the conflict would be good. I mean, you guys are great, and I mean, I'll definitely come to any protest that you guys have. I understand that with the numbers and COVID, everything, it's really, really hard. Do you guys feel like doing that Facebook Live stuff, like posting that stuff after, is really effective to get the message out? Because I've seen a lot of different views get on that. All right.
Yeah, showing what people missed if they didn't come is definitely important. Yeah.
Sure. All right, cool. Do you guys follow any certain pages online that you post to regularly for like any kind of protest or, just public information about Black Lives Matter?
I follow a number of groups, in South Jersey. There's a lot, and I'm fairly new to Facebook. I can't name all of them, but getting in these Black Lives Matter groups, and when it comes to upcoming protests, joining the groups of local areas. So like, just because there's a group that's not Black Lives Matter doesn't mean you can't post our virtual flyer in there, right? So like in the Waterford town, we love Waterford page and group page, going in there and posting our flyer, although it makes some people unhappy, it gets the message out to people who might otherwise not see the flyer. So that's definitely it. When I post a virtual flyer, what I want from people and what would really help me is just taking that flyer and putting it everywhere. I don't care if you put it in a county 20 miles from the location. It's just getting the message out, getting people riled up. It really helps bring numbers out.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For me, just real quick, I don't really follow any local pages. I do follow a lot of, I followed a lot of the bail funds, the New York Bail Fund, the Minneapolis Bail Fund. I believe they had a couple more in other larger cities. And in doing that, I was able to see where the money that was being donated was going to. But when you follow pages like that, you're also able to see that there is a larger outreach. So although we are protesting more locally, you could also submit your posters and your flyers to those pages to get them reposted. So again, they have a larger outreach and larger audience.
Thank you. I didn't even think of that. So thank you very much.
Wait, Linda Goldman had a question.
Yeah. Hi, Boaz. Hi, McKenna. Thank you guys so much. Hey, bud. Anyway, I do have a question. I'm not second guessing methodology. It's naivete and just kind of thinking about society in general right now as far as the good cop, bad cop, and riling up, and the environment of tribalism and hate in our society right now. And I don't even want to say right now, it's always been there. I mean, I think this whole period of time may be a blessing in disguise because people are, they're showing their hands, and we know exactly who the racists and the true haters are, and whatever's behind all that for those people. I have a whole bunch of other theories about trauma and all kinds of stuff that are a little outside the scope of this, but at any rate, I wonder, and I feel like it just makes people dig their heels in more. So it definitely riles up people to get the good guys out there, to get allies out there, to get listeners out there, to get white people out there to say, God, this is horrible. Like not having had an opportunity or an understanding of it until now. And that's a great thing. But are we riling up the haters and making their cause bigger too? And I don't mean that rhetorically. I'm asking honestly. It's double-edged, I suppose, but which is going to win?
Yeah, so let me give a little bit of context of the strategy of creating conflict online. First, it's online. So this isn't yelling in someone's face. This isn't, directly harassing someone. This is going online and saying, here are some issues that I personally know of your town. We're coming there and we're going to address it. We're going to come peacefully, but we're going to come loud. That is usually enough to get people riled up. And the thing is that, of course, we should be considerate of everyone's feelings regarding their town and where they live. That being said, one thing that I do and I practice every time we use this sort of strategy is I always address people as, hey, if you'd like me to clarify, what the message of our march is, I would love to speak with you. It's just keeping things really cordial. Sometimes, honestly, it can get a little bit of drama online, and I don't support that a lot. I think we just be putting our message out there. People who want to listen, people get fired up. I'd love to talk to them. But yeah, you're not wrong when you say it can be a double-edged sword. People who see Black Lives Matter and think, I see riots and I see on TV that's Black Lives Matter doing those, but these people seem like they're peaceful. Oh, now they're saying that my town has racists in it. They're saying my town is racist? Oh, no, I don't like Black Lives Matter anymore. I don't think it's that simple. And if it is that simple, I always try to come in and let people know, and try to be approachable and say, hey, you know, I'd love to talk to you more about it. I always like to clarify that the message of this is love, peace, and unity. That being said, there's frustration, and I personally know that there.